Now next move to our next session. It's called How to Succeed at Early Stages in the Southeastern Asian Markets. And I want to introduce our speakers. Adam Juhas from HIG Global, Gang Sun from Block 71, and moderator Nesh Suryan. He's a venture partner at Accelerating Asia. And this session will be in English with no translation to Russian, but next two sessions after it will be bothly in Russian and English. So welcome, speakers.
Hi, thanks, Mikhail, and good to see you, Adam, and good to see you, Черн, Черn-san. It's good to be here.
Yeah, great to be invited here.
Yeah, and it's good to see so many people. We've got a number of attendees here today. So I guess we're getting into this discussion around early stage companies and getting familiar with Southeast Asia. So I think Craig's kind of talked about the Accelerating Asia context a bit. So what I might do is hand over to both of you if you want to just talk about your experience in this region with early stage companies, just a brief introduction to what you guys are working on at the moment. Черн, do you want to go first?
So maybe a quick introduction of ourselves first. Block 71 is an initiative by NUS Enterprise. We are the entrepreneurship arm of the university. So the Block 71 initiative was started in 2011. At that time, the startup ecosystem in Singapore was fairly nascent, very small. So the university wanted to do an experiment to see by creating a startup hub to see whether that will help catalyze the industry. So we partnered with the government and we stumbled across this old building called Block 71, and that became the journey of Block 71. Today, this is the largest consolidation of tech startup community in Singapore. Any one time, there's about 800 to 1,000 startups, about 50 VCs, incubator accelerators, all within the area. And then in 2015, we have since expanded internationally. So in terms of Southeast Asia, we are in 3 locations in Indonesia. We just recently launched Vietnam, and we are trying to expand into Thailand. Of course, we are also in US, China, Japan, and many other areas. So that's a quick intro about ourselves and also our work in Southeast Asia.
Great. And Adam, we've caught up before. You've got so many experiences, so we'd love to hear your introduction.
Yeah, we did caught up, and it's a real pleasure to connect with you guys on the screen again. Welcome, everybody. My company is called HIQ Global. What we do is that we work on market entry, and I think it's fair to most likely be the smallest organization you have ever met. We don't have an office anywhere, and we don't have employees on the payroll. The way we compensate for lack of in-house capabilities and resources is that we have one of the biggest and most extensive and mature networks of different kind of stakeholders and partners. So we are always working with partners and through partners instead of deploying our own internal resources. What we are mainly focusing on is market entry and market expansion through generating deal flows for our startups, so getting the deals that they want, setting up the right type of corporate partnerships, but we occasionally we also engage them in their fundraising when it's appropriate for them. And just a final thing, I think it's a funny observation that one of my friends made recently. He asked me that, Adam, don't you think that your organization is kind of like a government agency that doesn't answer to any kind of government? And, you know, it's a funny observation, but there's something to it. To be honest, it's more than just a business for me. It's also my personal mission. And I like to play this kind of ecosystem building role. So I'm very easy and very flexible to connect with government agencies. Block 71, by the way, is one of those organizations in Singapore that we started the discussion on setting up an innovation partnership and business matchmaking platform that will connect 15 countries in the 2 regions. So we are very comfortable in that role. And in a way, we are kind of playing this government agency role.
That's awesome. It's so interesting. Like all of our paths have crossed. So Block 71 is where like Craig's first startup was kind of based out of Block 71. And then also Block 71 is where Accelerating Asia worked with Sistema Asia Capital for Russian cybersecurity and IoT companies to do their launchpad program into Singapore and Southeast Asia. So it's so cool that like we have this connection within the Singaporean ecosystem and how there's this handoff. It's very reminiscent of, I guess, what I felt when I first went to California with my startup. And it's good to see that Singapore is kind of replicating that. One of the interesting things is, I guess, there's a lot of Russian companies here and there's so much depth in that region around cybersecurity, hardware. There was a number of years of investment in this space and the minds that, you know, have really created products out of that space. It'd be great to hear from you guys. So how do you work with companies in the Southeast Asian context at the moment? And specifically companies that I guess are re-domiciling or they're looking at their expansion plans and their go-to-market here?
Yep. So I can start first. Well, first of all, as I mentioned, right, we have various locations around Southeast Asia, in Singapore, Indonesia, Vietnam. So this serves as a landing pad for the startups, to explore each of these markets. And in each of these landing pad, we have a team to provide support. This could be in the form of an immersion program, a short accelerator program, which helps the startups to quickly soft land, to explore or rather first to explore, to see whether the market is suitable for their business. Secondly, if it is, to quickly soft land, to have a quick and dirty setup so that they can start to run the first business engagement in that sense. And of course, we also help them to get access to the various parts of the ecosystem, whether be it to access mentorship, access to funding, getting them to business opportunities. And of course, being a university, our strength is to help access to talents as well as technology, not just from our own university, but even from our partnering universities around the region. So those are some of the areas that we can certainly help startups to expand to this part of the world. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, if you don't mind, I would like to start with a personal experience. We have 46 startups in our portfolio from 6 different kind of sectors or 6 different kind of verticals. Have been working with them for nearly 3 years now, so there's a lot of experience that accumulated over this time. And but there is one reoccurring theme when we engage startups and when we engage markets with our startups, is that they misunderstand and underestimate certain things about the local context. You know, they come out from their incubation and startup programs, professional mentor teams put together the most important documents, their business canvas, business model canvas, their go-to-market strategy, and they try to help them find the product market fit. Now, it's all fine, but those kind of strategies and documents are created in their local context. And when they come to us and start working with us, they very quickly realize that the local context in Southeast Asia will require them a very heavy revision of all of those documents. The business culture, the business etiquette is different, the way we do business is different, the markets are different. And because of these kind of local specifications, everything that you have to do, your strategies, your go-to-market strategy, or finding the market niche is going to be very different for you. So they kind of overlook this kind of process of localizing those kind of strategies. The other thing that I think that especially Central Eastern European startups, and I think we can include Russian startups into this as well, is they typically underestimate the power of working with corporate partners in Southeast Asia. We do business very differently in Southeast Asia. You need to have patience. Business relationships are built on trust, first of all, and only after that we start talking about business. And the role of corporate partners who will create kind of the pipelines for you, access to the markets, access to their network, and also their resources and experience on the local market should not be overlooked. In Europe, you can do your traditional B2B direct sales, approach companies one by one and treat them as clients, whereas in Southeast Asia, I think it's very important. And it's also part of the culture of Southeast Asia that corporates are open to innovation. They're quite open to sourcing top quality premium technologies to their own markets, and they also talk to each other. So there's that kind of relationship between companies where they exactly know which companies are open to innovation sourcing technology, and they share startups. So that can open up avenues to startups that may not be available for European startups. It's not typical in Europe, so they don't really consider it, but the power of utilizing and tapping into that corporate innovation space and trying to find the right corporate partners is very, very important.
Yeah. What you both said resonated so much. I think in our experience, there was Group IB, which is a Russian cybersecurity firm. They're a unicorn. They moved into the region probably 2 years ago. They set up their sales presence here, and they took a very committed stance to being a cybersecurity leader in the region. And that's paid dividends for them in that they've been able to secure a lot of banking clients. And Group IB traditionally would have not really had a presence in this region, but being here, being committed to the region, having their own sales force has really paid off for them. The other one was Thea Automotive Solutions, which is a cybersecurity firm that was focused on security for autonomous vehicles. Also coming from Russia, they set up their sales presence here and did the hard yards. And I guess we talk about this a fair amount at Accelerating Asia. Like there's something to be said here, and what you touched on was beautiful in that this isn't a mechanical process that can be reverse engineered from the academic context, because you miss the human element, you miss the cultural elements, and you can't just assume that Southeast Asia is like one mass. It has multiple different cultures and so forth. The benefit of these like accelerator programs, these government programs that we have, these corporate innovation programs that we have, is that very quickly a company that is entering from another jurisdiction lands with social capital and a pathway to their first hires and setting up. And what you said there was that social capital is so important here, and our ability to transfer social capital to an enterprise or to a product, just shortens that period of time for growth so much here. And it talks to what Vinny was talking about before. The thing I would like to ask next is I guess we always talk about the differences in Southeast Asian culture to like Europe or Australia or the US. It's quite interesting, like here in transactions, I think a lot of the time I see the saving face element. That was really hard for me to personally get connected with. Oftentimes people won't tell you something directly because the loss of identity is like, it's so intertwined within us that we can't, sometimes vulnerability is difficult or things like that. And when I first moved into Southeast Asia, I would see it as a lack of integrity, but that was me overlaying on a context from a different culture. But very soon I realized, this isn't a lack of integrity at all. It's like the building of trust, the importance of having a meal, the importance of sharing moments with a person, and then being able to very quickly do business. So you have this initial friction point that you get over, and once you're over it, business flows very rapidly. The beauty that I've seen in the Singaporean context is those accelerator programs, their ability to connect you. But then the other beauty of Singapore is the government is very proactive, and government departments are very proactive in enabling companies to hire in this region. And post-COVID, we're seeing this interesting dynamic where there's a lot of talent that is available in this region for us to hire and take advantage of as well. So I would love to hear maybe some of your stories about the cultural insights and how you've seen companies that you've seen like just kind of navigate that space and get their early traction and then go on beyond that. Maybe the Block 71 context first, yeah.
Maybe I could answer this in a different perspective. I totally agree with you, right? The Southeast Asia is a huge market, 600 million population, but at the same time, it's not homogeneous, right? So even in Indonesia, 270 million population, but it's the largest archipelago country in the world, right? So there's so many islands, so many, and each have their own culture and whatnot. But that said, it may not necessarily be a bad thing, right? Where there is a challenge, it also presents a opportunity. So for those of you who have a solution that can address this, then literally you are already a market winner in that space, right? So there are a lot of, limitations, or rather, limitations in some of these environments. But as I said, I don't necessarily think that it's a bad thing. Many of the startups have actually thrived, and because of this limitation, many of the competitors are not in that space. So I actually see that this diversity is actually a attractive draw in a way. Yeah. I mean, just to add to the culture thing, when I first set up our first presence in Indonesia, we are so blessed or rather, too used to the environment in our home country, right? So my first experience was the traffic, right? So I didn't realize the traffic. There was a U-turn that I needed to take on a cab, and it turned out the U-turn took me half an hour. Right? So lesson learned, I should have taken the overhead instead of the U-turn. Right? But it's part and parcel of the environment in that sense, and people are able to capitalize on that and actually find opportunities. And I think I would like to encourage the startups, do not see this as a challenge, but actually an opportunity.
Yeah, there's something to be said for
Nash,
like the further. Yeah, go ahead, Adam. I was going to say the further you go into those tougher spaces, you have this advantage over the people that follow you, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, I know that's definitely in your narrative, because you're one of these people, Adam, that just like goes into product development head first, right?
Yeah, I just wanted to add one thing to your kind of an observation, but also there's a question hidden in there, and that's the cultural factor in doing business and building relationships in Southeast Asia. And one of the first things that I usually tell my startups is that, when we're going to go into business meetings, at the end of the business meeting, you can get two types of answers to your proposition. It's either a yes or a yes. So that not losing face, it translates into different ways of communicating, different kind of answers. And the trick here is to understand which yes is just because they don't want to come hard at you and give you a negative feedback. So they're going to say, yeah, this is a very good product, let's keep in touch. And which of the yes is, yes, we are interested, let's talk more about this. So, those little subtleties between the European culture and the Southeast Asian culture, they come up in your business negotiations, your business dealings, and building relationships as well. And another thing I like to tell my startups is that, don't forget that when you are in Europe, you may start your business discussion with a call, and you can talk straight, you can talk directly about your business. In Southeast Asia, it starts with a cup of coffee. First of all, let's get to know each other. Let's build that trust. Let's share maybe a couple of personal stories, not too personal, because that you always have to respect other people's space, but you do have to connect to people before you pitch your idea and you start talking about business.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. Like I saw that firsthand in China, the amount of relationship events or culture that happens before we get to the business deal. That being said, is there reasons that you see why startups fail in this market? and general trends that you see among those failures and trends for like opportunities that you see as well.
Yeah, so I think I quote what Adam mentioned earlier, right? And one of the common failures, or not say failures, but I would say mistakes that we observe is, because generally for companies to expand out of their home country, typically they would have been doing fairly well in their home country. That's why they are looking to expand. And often when they arrive in a new market, they make the assumption that I've already done my validation, right? So the same product should work here. But they don't realize that each new market is a totally different market. You have to redo the whole validation altogether. And again, I can share a few examples. One, recently we have a company that we helped to try to explore this part of the world. It's in the media tech solution. They are doing very well in their home country. I think they're number 1 and number 2 in their home market. So when they arrive, we show them to two of our top media companies, right? SPH and MediaCorp. And but guess what? There is already an incumbent in the market, and to the customers, I think the technology is probably ahead of itself, even though it's cheaper, better, faster. There's no motivation to change. Their argument is, if it's not broken, why should I fix it, right? And to initiate a change, there are a lot of other hidden costs, right? There's retraining required. The customers needs to have a whole infrastructure just to have the adoption. So unless there's a trigger, there's no motivation. So in other words, even though your product may be good, there could be many other reasons why it may not be adopted, right? Either there could be an incumbent solution, or maybe it's too ahead of itself, or many other factors. So the key, as I suggest to most, is first is to understand or validate again whether the same solution appeals to the market. In other words, whether this market is suitable for you before you go full on to try to invest into this area. Doesn't necessarily mean that it works in one area, it works in the other. Yeah.
Well, Nash, you know that it's one of my favorite topics in the whole world, startup failures. I mean, last time we were on the screen together, we were running a webinar series on this single question, why startups fail, right? When we did the webinar series at Switch. And it's a fascinating question, and you also have to, you know, when you put it into the Southeast Asian context, you have to give it a twist, because normally you would talk about go-to-market strategies and lack of product market fit and all the usual suspect, and naturally that's probably one of the first places where you have to look, and where startups actually miss the point is how to localize it. As Черн was saying, is that it's one thing that you do well on your own market, but once you are entering a new market, a new context, a new culture, you know, it's almost like starting a new business altogether. So that's kind of one of the first categories or groups of reasons why startups fail. They don't have a localized business model canvas. Their go-to-market strategy misses the mark, and their product market fit, they struggle to find the product market fit. When you go further into this and staying in the Southeast Asian context, I think there are two additional things, and we lightly touched upon that as well. One of them is business culture and business etiquette. I'm keep telling my startups that, you know, you are not at home. Don't behave like you are on your own market. You are engaging European companies and European decision makers, and, you know, just based on your understanding how business is done in your own local region or your own local country. You have to have a different kind of mindset when you are talking to people in Southeast Asia. So business culture, business etiquette, I think that would be the second one. And there's a third element, also we touched upon it very lightly, is the importance of corporate partnerships. I mean, I did say that when you are in Europe, you have this direct approach to sales. When you are in Southeast Asia, you should expect for companies to be open to collaborate with you. Of course, there are a couple of things you have to consider. For example, are you only thinking about yourself? Are you asking the corporates what can they do for you, or are you proposing how you can collaborate together that is mutually beneficial? So always look for, you know, an opportunity to offer value to your corporate partners. Another thing maybe is that when you are talking to corporate partners, you have to be flexible about what you are talking about. Now, it's a big problem for single solution startups. They have a box solution, one solution, they want to sell it. That's all fine. But corporates don't think like that. They may not even be interested in your product, the way it is packaged, but they are interested in the potential in the technology. And they will want to explore different kind of avenues, different kind of market niche. This actually comes up quite a lot. Last year, for example, 3 of our startups were in the final for the Singapore Europe Innovation Partnership Forum. We started, you know, the follow-ups with the corporations. And in every single call that we had so far, we were not talking about the original product, but we were talking about what do you want to do with this product and technology? How is it relevant for us? So, you know, it's fascinating to see this close up. And I have that personal experience with that, is that it doesn't matter what you have in your mind. Maybe you should put it aside, place yourself in the local context, try to think with your corporate partners head, and try to find opportunities that is not only a good opportunity for you, but present a good opportunity, a scalable, viable business opportunity for your corporate partners. I think it's very important.
Yeah, I think you touched on a great point there before we get into the closing points. It's like you have your sales process or your iteration of your sales process before you do your first sales hire, which includes that product discovery. It's very important when we enter a new market to reassess that and reassess, you know, our education of our sales team and also how we're arming our sales team for the region for a new type of culture. That's super important. If anyone has any questions, feel free to throw them into the chat right now. I'm just going to go around for some quick final tips from Adam first, and then Черн for companies that are wanting to enter the region.
Well, for companies that want to enter the region, I think one of the first things that they should look into it is the current trends, and also how the government is reacting or proactively engaging those current trends. I know it's about Southeast Asia, but let me single out Singapore, for example. About 2 years ago, the government initiated the 30 by 30 policy. It's a huge shift in their way of looking at the agri-food sector as a whole, right? From a sustainability point of view. What the policy says is that by 2030, at least 30% of the food that is consumed on this island state by the population should be produced in Singapore. Now, it's very unique to Singapore because they don't have access to arable lands. So naturally, it's going to be a capital intensive and also a technology intensive process. Now, if you understand what the government intends to do, and you look at the type of funding that is available for you, if you look at where the money is going, you will see lots of opportunities that you may not think about. So following the trends and understanding what the government wants, it's very important. It's not just for Singapore, but I wanted to single out Singapore because this 30 by 30 policy is probably the most fascinating set of policies and strategy any government set in that region. So one thing is, you know, the higher level. The second thing that they do have to understand, and probably I'm repeating myself, local context, local context, local context. Don't miss it, don't ignore it, because you are about to set yourself up to fail. It's very important that we are respectful of the local culture. It's very important that we consider the local business etiquette. And, you know, it comes with quite a lot of things you have to learn, and you have to educate yourself about that. And finally, I think there are a couple of players on the market. You can ask for example, in Singapore, again, since I singled the country out, I'm going to stick with Singapore. But the Singaporean government is exceptionally good at making connections and introductions. So they will engage you. They will, you know, put you into the right direction, and they will tell you which organizations, government agencies, private sector stakeholders you have to engage in order just to get the information, or, you know, how to take it further. How do you create businesses? So it's very good to check in with some of these Singaporean organizations, like Block 71 is a good place to go, EDB, SGI, IPI, ESG, Enterprise Singapore. There's a list of government agencies that will answer your calls and give you the information that you need. And occasionally they will also give you a couple of tips or introductions to private sector stakeholders, because they have a good and a good working relationship with a good number of prestigious organizations. And they will tell you, okay, you need a go-to-market strategy expert, go to this organization. You need an innovation expert, go to this. You want to broaden your sales pipeline, here's the third organization. So they will always direct you to the right people. So I think it's worth checking in with the government agencies.
Cool. And Chen Sun, any closing comments?
No, yeah, just to add, absolutely. So the key is really to validate, right, whether there's business opportunity for each of the startups. And as what Adam has mentioned, there's actually a lot of resources available in each market. In Singapore, could be from the government, could be from some accelerators or even private investors, right? So those are avenues that the startup should certainly tap on, or even could be partners. So from what I've observed in other countries, how some of the startups have done well is the leverage on local partners, so as to mitigate some of the initial investment costs, just to test out the market if there is potential opportunities. Right? So you can actually engage potential distributors and work out some kind of distribution model to see, first test out if there is a demand, and if there is, then maybe to expand more into that region. So there are actually plenty of such resource. Just need to look out for those to essentially to validate first before you commit too much resource into this.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. I remember like my journey as well, and like Singapore was a jurisdiction that moved very quickly, particularly of fintech companies. So regulatory certainty, depth of capital markets, and a nation state that was very quick to regulate or let entrepreneurs know where we could innovate and how we could innovate, which has gone to show like how fintech has boomed in this region, and also cybersecurity. Likewise, love the work that Block 71 does. We're just always kind of around there. And Adam, always good to share space with you and that connection that you have to Central Europe and Southeast Asia. So thanks, guys. And I guess I'm handing over to either Dina or Mikhail for the next session. Always a pleasure to see you guys.
Yes, don't be in a rush. Still have questions. So there is one question. Yeah. How would you suggest to generate ideas for new business?
So I think Adam actually covered this one off a little bit. So one of the best things to look at is actually where regulation is heading in this region, and what are some of the geopolitical requirements that nation states have. So Indonesia has a very big push towards cybersecurity, KYC, AML sophistication for their fintech. Singapore has a very big push around agri-tech and alternative foods. Those are like some of the things that I see here, I think, and those allow you to find these little footholds as an innovator to do some really interesting stuff, particularly coming from Russia, and the depth of knowledge in engineering, hardware, cybersecurity, and finance. I think applying that to the Southeast Asian context is going to pay significant dividends. Churn, Adam?
No, exactly right. So essentially, where there is a problem, that's where the business opportunity is, right? So if you're able to identify the problem, of course, the bigger the problem, the better it is, right? There will be people who will need a solutions. So a quick answer to this is, if you're able to identify what is the problem, and if it's big enough, it's a new business opportunity.
Adam?
Dina, I have to be honest with you. I'm actually not too fascinated about ideas themselves. I usually what I say is that, you know, $1 million ideas are dime a dozen. $1 million businesses don't spring up from $1 million ideas on a daily basis. You know, you can have different kind of ideas to look at. You know, where's the market, where's the money, and where's your niche, or where's a problem that you can solve. But I think you can go further than that. And, you know, probably you are familiar that the 2021 budget by the Singaporean government came out. There are 3 very interesting vehicles in that. So that was open innovation platforms, increased connectivity, and so on. So more focusing on what are the vehicles, what are the supporting institutions that can actually you know, support that venture building process rather than just focusing on ideas. If I want to just touch upon a couple of things that could be potentially interesting and I think emerging, 3 usual suspects: the edutech, health tech, and fintech space. Around 2018, 2019, there was a slowdown in these 3 areas. Thought that they will disappear, and then of course the pandemic happened, and they are immediately relevant again. You know, health tech, med tech, fintech, and edutech. What I also see is automation, and not just automation processes or automation of. We do have one startup that thing out of the head that I think it's black magic. It probably should be banned, but they created a software automation algorithm that automates the entire planning and design process for utility companies, a process that would normally take anywhere between 6 to 12 weeks of constant iteration and checks. Their software, their algorithm generates the whole plan with the reporting, the tags, you know, the blueprints and everything within 4 hours. And I see this coming up time and time again, that automation, not just in industry, but also in software, I think it's a strong one. And finally, I also see sustainability as a topic, as a generic topic, kind of finding its way into different kind of areas, whether if it's green tech, clean tech, renewable energy, or it's the smart city place, but also in agri-food, sustainability comes in. How can we produce more food? How can we supply the food that is needed by our population by more sustainable ways? I think Singapore is leading this space in terms of sustainability, especially when it comes to the agri-food space. I think we should be expecting huge things, impressive things from Singapore. And if I was a startup founder, I would definitely have a closer look at those sectors and also check the government's budget 2021 and some of the new regulations and policies behind those.
I think if I can add also in terms of trends, I think partly because of the pandemic, right? I think that has also accelerated the interest in digital solution as well as AI. So there seems to be wide adoption, not just in Singapore, I think in the region, including our partners in Indonesia, Vietnam as well. So I think this, in terms of trend, could also be something which the startup can also look out for. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yes, thank you so much for such an interesting discussion. Also at 4 o'clock Moscow time, we're going to have a networking session, and I want to invite you. I will give you a link, and it will be great if you can join us and discuss these things and maybe other things together with today's participants. Thank you so much for this discussion.